Hamster wheels turning. I fed Clarence the hamster. He runs all of our tech, actually. We're also old school here and try to be as analog as possible. Okay, here we go. Looks like we're live. Give us a thumbs up in the chat. Let me just notify our Telegram group. We are live. Give me 2 seconds. And hey, so great to have you on with us today, Billy.
Well, great to be here with you guys. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it.
And we know you're busy there, so just holler at us as far as how much time you have.
I got about an hour before I
Okay.
have somewhere else to go, but yeah, I mean, I can fudge a little more time out of that if need be.
No
Okay,
worries.
let's do it. Let me hit record and honor your time. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the esteemed Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme, up here on the gorgeous azure waters of the Smith River, and looking like it's going to be one of those primo late spring, early summer days today, Bear, as the weather is sublime, blue skies right now, and the garden is exploding. Best time of the year. I was working outside till about 8:45 last night with the sun still up. Isn't that the best?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Every winter it's like, what the F am I doing living in a rainforest? And now when the good weather hits, it's like this place is heaven. It's no place on earth I'd rather be. And boy, everything is just gorgeous. Coming up the canyon, all the new growth, and going through the redwoods. The redwoods take on a different flavor here. The river's down to where we can just see nice crystal clear swimming pools, and it's not just raging, and everything. The salmon and the steelhead love it when it's raging, but it's pretty hard to swim out there during those months.
Yeah, it's turning into trout season now. Got those cutties that are ready to, I'm ready to go catch. Well, I'm very excited to have our guest on today. We met in person at a Barbara O'Neill event back in March in North Carolina, and Billy Bond, who I was familiar with heading into the event, really brought down the house with, he did two presentations, and his first one was really captivating, and we're going to get deep into that today. And what I liked about Billy is he's fearless with his essentially taking on a lot of the problems that he's facing as a farmer in North Carolina, going back to the mysterious events around the Hurricane Helene and the cleanup and galvanizing the local population to take action, not to rely upon government agency, and really, as any farmer knows, how to get your hands in the dirt and do it yourself. And I really appreciate that about Billy and all that he's doing over there with his lovely wife to wake up his local community and take action. So very much in alignment with our ideals and our ethics. And I'm very happy to have Billy on the show today. So we titled this "Saving the World One Farm at a Time," which couldn't be more apropos for the conversation today. This was our slogan as off-grid farmers and owners of two organic nurseries years prior to the inception of the Alfa Vedic farm. And this is coming from the voice of Dr. Bear Lando. We viewed the practice of bioterrain medicine and permaculture farming as more than apparent flip sides of the same coin. Medicine rooted in nature. On this Alfacast, we return to our roots with the subject most akin to our own mission of encouraging community self-sufficiency through the establishment of small local farms. Permaculture farmer and creator of Perma Pastures Farm, Billy Bond, joins us to share his similar journey at his family-owned farm in North Carolina. Billy Bond is a former U.S. Army sapper, journeyman electrician, trained butcher, and permaculture designer. Now a full-time farmer and educator, he's the force behind Perma Pastures Farm and the host of the Permaculture P.I.M.P.cast, spreading wisdom on preparedness, independence, and modern homesteading with a heavy dose of common sense and grit. Billy's family operation is all about embracing and promoting the principles of permaculture, cultivating sustainable practices, and empowering others to establish harmonious relationships with the land. Quote, it's not just a way of life, it's a passion that drives us to make a positive impact on the world around us. On our farm, we've dedicated ourselves to living out these values every day. Through our agricultural endeavors, we strive to create a place where the land and its inhabitants can thrive in perfect harmony. Billy believes in sharing his knowledge and love for permaculture to inspire others to join the journey towards a greener and more compassionate world. From workshops to hands-on experiences, the Perma Pasture family opens their doors and hearts to those eager to learn and grow with them. Billy is definitely a new friend of Alfa Vedic for many reasons, and we can't wait to explore with him many of these topics today, as well as we've been invited to go on his show. So I see this as a great new partnership from our brother from across the plain. Take it away, Bear.
Hey, Billy. Thanks for being with us. This is something I'm really looking forward to. And, it is our wheelhouse. And we already had a good chat. It could have been a good podcast in and of itself. Billy and I were comparing notes about just as full-time farmers, what we contend with some of the wrinkles that are thrown our way by way of our friends in the U.S. Air Force, that are spraying us like bugs on the ground, things that we notice that are different in our crops from year to year since they've really literally been assaulted. And we also talked about Dane Whittington, Wigington, who lives just a stone's throw across the other mountain range in Mount Shasta, in our region of the world. And of course, he's been sounding the alarm for a long time. So I'd like to get maybe into a little conversation about that later on. But first we want to hear more about your operation and everything, Billy. And this is our Deb and we started homesteading in 1976. We were pregnant with our first child and moved up in the sticks there, and we were living off grid on 200 acres and doing all that. Then we moved to Hawaii when the kids were young and learned how to homestead in more of a tropical environment and do farming there. And now we've had two in Northern California, so this is our fourth rendition. And my point is you learn how to grow and adapt to different environments and climates. And so I'm particularly looking forward to picking your brain about, what you found in your experience, and also, from a whole different geography in North Carolina there. So maybe, Billy, tell us a little bit about your background. It's interesting because you came, it sounds like, maybe from a urban environment early on in your life and then transitioned into the farming life. So how'd you do it all and get to where you're at right now?
Well, first of all, it's a joy to be with both of you. Yeah, I mean, as far as the urban background, yes and no. Early on, me and my five brothers, well, ended up finding out later on I got six, but yeah, in my family, you knew who your dad was because your mom told you. And it,
Yeah.
it wasn't the best upbringing in the world. I was raised along with my brothers by my grandmother, who was widowed in her 70s, and here she is raising six boys while mom and dad are off in prison because they decided to go on a bank robbing spree with six kids in tow. You can't make this up. I mean, this is like straight out of like Raising Arizona or something like that. But, and
Robbing
then
banks is good business if you get away with it.
yeah, but my old man had a thing for my old man. I kid you not, he had a thing for
Okay.
KFC. He would come out and he would say, "Colonel's been good to us." So, I mean, yeah. So I can find the humor in all this. But while they were away in the slammer, we were being raised by a grandmother who was pretty much raised on the land. So we started off there. Mom and dad got out of the joint, and then he took us kids, and we went from what to me was a beautiful, beautiful early childhood because I was five when all this stuff went down. Still remember a lot of it anyway. And then, find ourselves growing up in Oklahoma City. So yeah, that was, the south side of Oklahoma City. But always, always, I was drawn back to that time when I was little, growing up in Pennsylvania with my grandmom, of my first ever school trip, field trip. And if anybody's my age or older, you probably know what that was like, especially when you lived in a place where you didn't go anywhere. And that first field trip for me was going to a Amish orchard processing house. And I still to this day remember the wood. I remember the smell. Yes, apples do have a smell. I remember tasting, this freshly squeezed cider that was coming out, and it never left me as a kid. So I was like, okay, well, kind of store that in the back of my mind. Made a lot of good decisions, bad decisions growing up, and which is going to happen when you have two parents that aren't really cut out to be parents. And so, after high school, felt like the Army was the best choice for me, became a U.S. Army sapper, which was honestly one of the better decisions I ever made in my life because it got me out of that turmoil in the city. You know, in that environment, I really thrived. Met my wife, spent some time there, decided not to make it a career, got out, joined the electrical union, and at the same time, finished my college degree. And at the same time, I was going through a union apprenticeship, got done with that, and then thinking, okay, well, I got the American dream, or at least what they tell you it is, which to me is a nightmare. Of course, I didn't know, nobody has ever given me the download for what this was. Had everything I wanted, mountains of debt, the whole 9 yards, and still was very unhappy. My wife as well. And so did a lot of soul searching until I came across Joel Salatin's first book. And that was paradigm changing for me. It really, really was. So then all of a sudden, I started formulating along with my wife, how do I get out of this matrix? How do I get off this hamster wheel that, this matrix that we all prepare for ourselves, I suppose, or at least the environment does. So it started, okay, first thing I want to do, figure out how to raise animals. Okay, got that down. Now, how do I process them? Because every time I take in my animal to a butcher, I get back somebody else's stuff. So I volunteered in a butcher shop, the finest out there, learned under Michelin star chefs, and then took all these things, whether it was in the electrical trade, whether it was in the butcher's trade, all these different things. And then when I found permaculture, there was no going back. I'm like, okay, first thing we got to do, first thing we did, get my wife out of the matrix. So she's home first. Our son, who is a pretty doggone incredible permaculture designer, educator himself, get him out of the matrix next. And then get me out last. And that's precisely what we did and formulated a plan. How do we do it? Step by step by step. So you can say that, I guess I got myself, you could say that I retired from the mainstream system at about 48 years old. I'm nearly 55 now. And if the beauty, the one saving grace in this experience to me is knowing that I got my son out when he was in his teens. So now here he is, technically, I'll call it retired from the matrix. And here he is, he's having his 30th birthday here in a couple of days. And honestly, he's spending every day doing what I wish I would have been doing at his age. So, yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer, but I'm sure there's a lot of other details in there that I'm missing. But honestly, when I discovered that we live in a world that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing, and realizing that I was not at all cut out for this, the way this construct that they made, and that there was a way out, there was no looking back. And no matter where this road leads, I still have all the skills. I could go work with my tools tomorrow as a electrician if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I spend every single day, all day for the most part, doing the things I love, doing what I feel the good Lord has put me on this planet to do. And then that also led into other things like, okay, we've innovated some things, we've created some things. So how do we evangelize it to the world? Well, that started with YouTube, of course, being the world's biggest Luddite. I didn't know anything about that. And then when I realized the level of suppression that they were doing on YouTube, I'm like, okay, maybe we better start a podcast. Because one of the little side careers is I was also a fill-in host at KMBZ in Kansas City. For a while, I was their backup guy. I said, well, how do I take that and then put it into a podcast? I knew nothing about podcasting, but I did know a lot about radio. So that's exactly what we did. So as far as the name, let me go ahead and just tell that real quick before I throw it back to you guys. I came up with the Permaculture P.I.M.P.cast. It's not what people think. Yeah, I call myself the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, but that is a means to reach out to the kids that grew up in the hood like I did to make them realize that you don't have to be a star athlete to get success. You don't have to be an entertainer to get success. So when they look at a guy like me and they think, oh man, this guy is a product of two convicted felons, man, he's made a lot of wrong turns in his life, and look what he's doing now. Now, all of a sudden, it seems a little more attainable to some of those folks out there. And PIMP is also an acronym. It stands for Permaculture is my passion. So that was the way I could take something that was a very disgusting word and flipping it on its head to where I could reach out to kids that might look a little bit like me. And also it could apply to anybody in that continuum. I mean, whether it's the mom whose husband ran off with a go-go dancer, or whether it's just somebody on the street that just thinks it's a funny thing. Well, I'm finding out that it's absolutely working. It's reaching out to those kids that don't know that what I'm doing is absolutely available to them. So once again, I want to thank you guys here, and I look forward to having you on the P.I.M.P.cast.
Awesome. I look forward to that too. The amazing thing is you see the shift. We talk about decentralization and, kind of going back to the roots of this nation, from ground up. And you listen to your story, and, we all have unique stories as far as how we got to be farmers later on in life. But yeah, a lot of the earlier generations that grew up in farming families and were adapted to more the commercial farming model, all of them, next generation, left the farming business because it was not sustainable. All the cards were stacked against them as far as being able to do that, as corporate farming came in and, pretty much gobbled everything up and, forced people to leave. And now you hear more people with stories like yourself that were, like your background, people in the tech field. I had my own little, background, and we all are finding ourselves back to the land because there's something very deep, fueled by a passion just to return to the land and reconnect. And also, it's a solution, as we talk about, as every community being self-sufficient by having a number of small farms that all have a certain little niche. Ours here, we do herbals, that are more medicinal because it's kind of, my roots. On the other hand, like Joel, he's, more into the animal end of things. So tell us about your farm. And I know you're a lot about education and sharing, but do you, have any particular crops, or is it more about raising animals?
Sure, sure. Man, you guys are hitting on my favorite topics. So, yeah, as far as what we do here, it's all of the above. Now, let me narrow that down a little bit, because for years, what we've been doing is we would go out, and I've come up with some pretty strategic ways to buy land without interest and on handshake deals. So I would buy land, we would go out there, fix it up, and then a lot of times just give it away and then move on to the next one, move on to the next one. Well, I'd say about 7 years ago, I said, okay, I'm getting a little, maybe I better find a forever kind of place. And maybe we better go ahead and try to put down roots. So I said, we're going to jump in the vehicle. We're going to drive until I find a place that seems like paradise to me. And I got as far as Western North Carolina, and okay, this is it. Let's go find some land. And that's exactly what we did. So we bought a piece of land that nobody wanted, completely, I mean, overgrazed like nobody's business. And it's on the side of a mountain that nobody thinks they can do anything with. Well, with that permaculture background, of course, I'd never farmed in terrain like this, certainly not this extreme. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is going to be the challenge of a lifetime. And it was one of the best decisions we ever made. So to me, the area was great because the winters are really, really mild. I wear a t-shirt most of the year. In the summers, it never really gets above 90. And we're at about 3,000 feet, south-facing slope on an area that nobody wanted. It was completely decimated with this invasive grass, or what, the government brought in. They put it alongside the interstates. It's called Chinese silvergrass. Nothing will eat it except for a water buffalo. And so I'm like, okay, since I'm not in a water buffalo business, how do we go about doing this? Well, what we did in a nutshell was figure out, okay, we'll use pigs, and they'll be our steamrollers. They'll go through, because this place was a thorny, thickety mess. We use pigs to be our steamrollers, and I'm simplifying this a great deal. And then after the pigs, we bring in the sheep. And then for a time, we did use cows, but they were more harm than good in terrain like this. So sheep had a better impact on the terrain. So we basically ran them through, And then at the same time, we started realizing, okay, we don't have a silvergrass problem. You'll definitely understand this, Dr. Bear. We didn't have a silvergrass problem. What we had was a compaction problem and a lack of fungi in the soil problem. That's exactly what we had. So we found out that once we put down a carbon layer, using the pigs to help facilitate that, and also, adding a little bit of our own in the form of straw that wasn't sprayed, which was nearly impossible to find. I mean, you can find the bones of bin Laden easier than you can find unsprayed hay and straw up in these
Yeah,
mountains.
I
So
can confirm that.
so that's exactly where we started. We're like, okay, pastures are really, really turning around. And right now, I mean, as we are right now, I mean, for the first few years, we had to feed hay because I'm from a model, from the Jim Garris model, let's say, or even the Greg Judy model, where we stockpile forage, but there was no forage to stockpile. This last year was the first year after year 6 that I've been able to do it, where we don't have to buy any hay to put back. We stockpile forage for the winter months. And so right now, you can look at all my neighbors around us absolutely decimated with this Chinese silvergrass, and nobody's bothered to come up and ask, well, hey, how is it you have grass out there? How is it you have all these sheep out there? How do you have chickens that thrive? How are you the only person for miles that actually has bees that are still alive and thriving? We just
Yeah.
caught another swarm yesterday, as a matter of fact. So we said, okay, well, we got these animals out here. How do we protect them and also add to what we have going on here? So we put in orchards, we put in food forests. We haven't done a whole lot in terms of adjusting the topography around here, although that's in the works. I mean, those are things you really want to do on the front end, is getting your water squared away. Um, but yeah, we got trees. I'm telling you what, if I were to walk, I'm literally looking out the window down below me right now, and I can show you, just by using some of the methods we use, just by good management, we have 4-year-old trees that look like they've been out there for 20 years. We have a bumper crop of everything. And when I say everything, I'm talking apples, peaches, pears, plums, blueberries. So all 7 layers we've put out there in the terms of a forest. We have an edible overstory, edible understory, edible shrub, edible vines, edible, you name it. We have, Chinese yams growing up our nitrogen fixers. We have all kinds of crazy things that are going on out there. And we are to the point, I think this year will mark the first year after 7 years of doing this out here, where, not counting our salt and everything else, we could quite literally, we produce all of our own meat, which is easy to do. In fact, so much, in fact, that we teach classes and give away the meat. We have to. I mean, it's produced so much abundance. I got 8 freezers out there. All of them are plumb full with, I mean, I got an entire ecosystem out there in these freezers. So we got everything that we need, and it created such abundance that we have to give it away. And that's exactly why we're doing what we do. So whether it's we're teaching folks about how to orchard, how to put in a food forest, how do you layer these things? How do your animals integrate with these systems? Because that's precisely what we do. These things don't happen in isolation. It's not like where folks will say, well, the orchard's over there, the food forest is over there, the chickens are over there. No, they're all integrated into the landscape. And so when the sheep go through, they make their deposit, and then of course the chickens go right behind them. They break up the pest cycle, and so as it rains, it pushes all that fertility down into the swale for the benefit of the trees. So we didn't see a single worm out here for the first year. After that, I mean, you can't put a spade in the ground right now and not pull up so many worms that'll make your head spin. And that is a clear indication that things are definitely on the mend, and they're getting better and better and better, to the point now that I'm running into a stocking density problem, meaning that we had land where I had to bring in a bunch of inputs from outside. Now it's so much that I can't even get enough animals to stay ahead of it, meaning that I got to intervene with maybe a weed eater on the back end. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but yes, we cover it all. And we are hoping and praying that people take what we're doing in this magnificent design science we call permaculture, and then you don't have to do it all, just take pieces of it and apply it. And so now we're to the point where we're showing people, whether you live in a postage stamp backyard, it's possible. You can do a lot of this stuff. Or whether you live on large acreage like us, um, this stuff is scalable. You can do it all the way around, and it works like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah, we always talk about this family in Pasadena, a little postage size lot. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And,
That's
just
right.
evidence of exactly what you're saying. They've got a whole working farm in a neighborhood and can't eat all this stuff. They have an online business where they sell their food, share it with neighbors. And yeah, we've been here. We're going on 10 years in this place now, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens exactly the way you're talking about it. When we first got here, we had to do a lot of infrastructure things and getting rid of stuff that the people before us did, and then step by step, pretty soon the place is alive. You've got pollinators, just buzzing you all the time, and you can't eat all the food, but are you, I know you're sharing your meat and everything you talked about, but are your crops and everything, are they more for personal use and your farm is more of an educational uh, prototype, we'll say? Is that pretty much your?
See, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because
Mhm.
I'm also deeply into preparedness. So I'm really,
Mhm.
really cautious about who actually comes here, especially when I see things unfolding in this world the way they are right now. I'm a little concerned that somebody might think, oh, yeah, we came out there to visit, and should the worst happen, hey, we'll just show up to his place. That would not be in your best interest. So what I'm working on right now is trying to get a demonstration site where we can do these things, but on a very, very limited basis. I mean, outside of using YouTube as a lever, and it's tough to do because I really want people to see it three-dimensionally. You can only do so much through a YouTube channel, but when I'm teaching people how to make compost, biocomplete compost, you need to know what it smells like. I can't convey that. I can't possibly convey that in a video. You need to know what it looks like. Does it look like a 70% cocoa bar? You need to know what the texture feels like. These are senses that I can't offer in a video. So yes, I'm actively seeking a place where I could have a demonstration site where more people could come out there because really and truly, we've had a few weird characters show up before when the place was open. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know if this is such a swell idea for people to think that they could just, and they were for a while because they see you on YouTube, they just think, oh, well, I'll just show up and knock on the front door. This is not that kind of place.
Yeah.
Um,
We've never had that happen, huh, Bear?
Yeah, no, we hear you loud and clear. We get requests every single week. Can we come look at the farm? And number one, the lifestyle is that you're working when the sun comes up, 7 days a week, and you really don't have time for much chit chat. We
right.
got a work crew out there right now, which I got to get to as soon as we're done here. And you don't know who's coming to your land, what their motives are, who sent them, or anything else. So yeah, completely get it. And especially when you get out in the podcast world, a lot of good folks out there that just want to learn from people like you. On the other hand, um, there's a lot of different kinds of eyes that have different reasons, so you don't want to expose yourself.
And it takes one weirdo, and it's happened. It takes one weirdo to say, okay, enough is enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. So, yeah, what we do in terms of our production, we've had so much production. All of our meat birds, which by the way, we raise for free, and I'd love to tell you about how we're doing that. Our layers we raise for free. Our sheep we raise for free. Any cattle we raise for free.
Mhm.
And our pigs are the only thing we pay any money for because we don't farrow our pigs. So those are, and people think I'm lying about it, but I got the videos to prove how we're doing it. It's our pigs we pay 21 cents a pound for, which nobody believes, and we do it all with waste streams. So that's exactly how we're able to give away so much. I have 8 freezers absolutely full, and all of our chickens the last time out, um, not only did we raise all these chickens, we had to give it all away for the people that came up with the processing. I'm like, okay, you got to take them away. I can't get another chicken in the freezers here. We gave away all that, and we raised 6 more pigs year before last. We had to give away 3. We only kept 1, and then actually we gave away 5. Didn't charge any money for any of it, and at the same time taught classes. We gave 1 away to a church. Bad decision. I didn't realize I was feeding millionaires at the time. Gave one away to a local guy, and then gave 3 away to people that needed to put meat in their freezer. And the pigs what they did for me, it was no loss to me because, as I mentioned a moment ago, the fattening of the pig was a byproduct of clearing the land I needed cleared. And so the same thing with our chickens. We use a method. Instead of sending our son off to college, we sent him off when we found out what his desire was. We sent him off instead of sending him off to college, even though he had a full ride academics ride. We sent him off to Australia, learning under Jeff Lawton. We sent him to Joel, learn at Polyface. Sent him off to Greg Judy, learn there. Sent him off to the Earthship Academy, learn there. So now he would go to these places, learn as our emissary. And then, of course, as you well know, when you teach something, you learn it twice. So we'd send him away as an emissary, come back, teach us, his mom and dad, how to do it. And now we know it. And so now we take turns, or we were taking turns, because he manages our other farm back in Texas. So what we would do is we'd make a rotation. Okay, we spent a lot of our disposable income on acquiring new information, like, oh, I want to learn how to learn. I want to learn to be a better orchardist. So I spent the time and money and effort to go up to Canada and learned under Stefan Subkowiak, probably the best permaculture orchardist in the world. Came back with information that blew my mind. And so now we've coming up with our own systems that are really not all that original. It's just taking, for example, the way we do a food forest is a combination of Mark Shepard, Jeff Lawton, Bill Mullison, Elaine Ingham, Stefan Subkowiak, and probably 5 other people that I'm just not even thinking of right now. So we cut and paste all the very best of these people, put it into a system that works for us in our area. And we're finding out, as you well know, that every one step I take towards nature, I'm getting 10 of them right back to me in a way to where the abundance, as you mentioned a moment ago, Doc, the here he is. All of us grew up in this reductionistic system in the United States of amnesia, and we've forgotten about these ways that are so incredibly productive that if we would just apply them in this decentralized way, and of course, I'm learning more and more about how to decentralize every part of my life. I thought I was decentralized. Well, and now I'm discovering, well, I'm not as decentralized in my health as I'd like to be. I'm not as decentralized in the money as I'd like to be, but boy, I sure got it down when it comes to farming. So there's a lot of holes in my game as well. But walking away from this reductionistic worldview that we have in America, and I'm discovering that every single time, without question, if I just do it the way nature does, I have so much abundance that I have to give it away. And that's precisely what we do. So the lady in town, for example, in our food forest and orchard, our ground cover, yeah, you can grow grass if you want, but why not grow strawberries? That's what we do. We had a bumper crop. We have so many strawberries in this um, orchard. Well, it was actually the food forest that produced them. Not only did we put so many back that we could never possibly eat them all, we gave them away to the local ice cream shop in town. And the lady is making, of course, she's a Nazi when it comes to making her ice cream, which I love. If she can't get the proper ingredients, well, who do you think provides her the blueberries that they can't use anymore, or the strawberries, or the rhubarb, or all these other things where we basically have, look, I get all the free ice cream I want. And in exchange for giving them all the things that I can't eat or put back. So folks, I mean, if I want to impart anything here, is that we already have the ways in which we can do this stuff and do it by using waste streams. And if we're good at anything, it's got to be that.
Amazing. I love that you're doing the communal bartering like that and not going right into the debt system, which, as you're perfectly explaining here, that's not how nature works. It's not debt oriented. It's the opposite. It's abundant oriented. And isn't it funny, Billy, how like we talked about, I believe in person a little bit about how the demonization of carbon, but carbon is literally that product that is required, as you're saying here, right? The chop and drop and all these kind of techniques from permaculture that are giving you this, that's giving you this abundance. But yet they want to spray and cover the skies and cover the sun to become more carbon neutral, right?
I'm glad you brought that up because one of the, I'm in Western North Carolina. I'm at the very epicenter of where that hurricane came through. And we could definitely have deep discussions about how that went down. But the point being, is it left behind a level of toxicity. In fact, I got kicked off of X for a while. I had just gotten on and I posted this video that I did with Dr. Will Spencer. And he'd come out, done some scalar testing out there, which, by the way, we ended up bringing in environmental engineers. They did lab testing, only to find out that this place, and I quote, rivaled Chernobyl, especially down by the
Wow.
river. So going back to your carbon argument, this, folks, I mean, this is you're probably the first people in the world to hear about what's absolutely going on. And it goes right back to what you mentioned, Mike, concerning carbon. So I'm out here thinking, good night, how do I do this? Heavens to Murgatroyd, I don't have any idea. So I made some calls, looked around, and then come to find out that, you know what, I'm exactly the right person that ought to be working with this. I've been trained by Dr. Elaine Ingham. I understand all these other things, but I'm thinking with these so-called forever chemicals out there, I got no way to deal with this. Okay, so here's how it went down. That thing happened back in October. I got started in December. The numbers, whether it was the scalar testing or the lab testing, and I could show you guys the paperwork, it was off the flipping charts. Toxic. People are still dropping like flies around here. So I got these folks out there that were a little bit open to the notion of me going out there doing what I do. So what did I do? First things first, put down carbon on the doggone soil. So I got some unsprayed straw, put it out there. And then what did I do? I took this Biomplete compost that I make, and I also combined it with the extremophiles or archaea that I'm getting from Dr. Will Spencer. Now, I knew for a fact, I knew already that using my methods alone, just by making a compost extract, would definitely get us across the finish line. But I'm thinking years. It's going to take years. Well, what I didn't know, and then I also have clandestine locations because we have a lot of Fruit Loops around here that might do something weird, like put bleach all over my project and figure out whether or not we're, and make it just destroy everything. There are actually people like that. In fact, there were.
Well, there's state operators that do that. I've talked about this in previous podcasts as a volunteer firefighter, how they were forcing us to bleach our water because there was a supposed disease that was affecting the Port Orford cedars here. And so they were literally having us pull water out of these pristine creeks up in the mountains fighting the fire, but then dumping gallons of bleach in the water because of their
Are you
crazy
serious? I never
misconception
heard
around
that.
nature.
They
Oh, it
were,
gets
they were,
worse.
wow.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It gets worse, Mike. Um, Talking about these seedy characters, had three people come in and try to bribe me. Didn't know where they came from. Now I got people looking into who they are because I did snap screenshots of them. Wanted to do a Zoom meeting. Didn't know who they are. And then they're asking me. They're like, "Oh, we know you're working with Dr. Will Spencer." I'm like, "Well, how do you know this?" And it was a lady and two guys. And then finally they got down to brass tacks and said, "Look, bottom line, man, what's it going to take?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what's it going to take? How much is it going to cost us for you to work with us?" And I'm like, "You don't understand. The highlight of my day is moving my sheep. Um, if you're offering me money, then you don't have enough of it. And plus, my grandbaby plays in this area. There's no way you're going to get me to be Judas to work with you guys." So they were trying to thwart. I mean, literally said, "We got deep pockets. How much will it take?"
Wow.
So I knew I was on to something there. So at that point, I realized I better have some clandestine locations that not anybody knows about. So I started doing experiments. One of them I had a control. Three of them I used Dr. Will stuff. Three beds I used my compost extract. And then seven beds I combined them. I could take you guys out to the high tunnel right now and show you that all of them, except the control, is on another level. I mean, blowing up in a way you would not believe. So what did I do? Went out to that project by the river, stuck that carbon down. You know, the stuff that's real bad for everybody. Stuck the carbon down and started treating it every single week with nothing more than a 300-gallon IBC tote. Put my extract into it. And of course, the water out there that's coming through the tap is fluoridated and chloridated. So I got to treat it with fulvic and humic acids to get it where I can even work with it so it doesn't kill my microbes. And I was out there spraying this stuff. As of 2 weeks ago, Dr. Will came through, tested it again. There was almost no evidence that anything ever happened on this property. Check the property adjacent to it. It's like it happened yesterday. Toxicity is off the charts. And that's with them chemtrailing us every single day. So we've come up with a decentralized, and you guys are going to love that word, decentralized method of being able to remove all these toxins from the soil, and nobody wants to talk about it. Well, mainstream science is going to tell me this is impossible. Well, let me bring you guys back to Chernobyl. Was it impossible for the Lubka farm right after Chernobyl, which was downstream in Austria? To this day, you can't get a Geiger counter to go off. And when the disaster happened, they couldn't get a Geiger counter to go off.
They're
Nobody.
spraying mushroom extracts, weren't they?
Well, when you get down to brass tacks, that's probably what the main ingredient was. But what were they great at? Windrow composting. They pioneered it right over there at the Lubka farm in Austria. So from the time that accident happened, mainstream science, for some reason, could not believe that they couldn't get a Geiger counter to go off, even though at that time when it went off, they were growing brassicas over there, which if anything should have been collecting radiation, it would have been your broccoli, your cauliflower, all those things. Couldn't detect it, not then, not now. And mainstream science has no answer for why this is happening, but you and I do.
Yeah. Billy, could you, just for the sake of our audience, could you repeat that methodology they were using? You mentioned that technique by name.
You mean in the Lubka farm?
The composting.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
I'm sorry,
Well,
go
you
ahead, Doc.
mentioned the name of, what they were doing in Russia. And, when I mentioned, using fungi, and then you went into another thing
Oh,
that they're doing. So if you just elaborate on what they're doing exactly.
sure. At that farm, what they were using, they were just making biocomplete compost, but the active ingredient in that, which forgive my use of the word because mainstream science is going to tell me it's an impossibility, is that essentially the radiation that was landing on that farm was being somehow transmuted.
Yeah.
Now, mainstream science will tell you that that can't happen. It only happens in a nuclear reactor. But at the subatomic level, we don't know what's going on, and mainstream science is too arrogant to admit that we don't know that it's happening. But I can say, so I don't know what else to call it. If radiation is coming in and it's not there anymore, it by definition has to be transmuted. So what's doing it? Even though we have evidence after evidence after, I mean, example after example after example. But when you get down to brass tacks of what's in their compost, guess what? We don't really know because mainstream science won't go over there and examine it and say, gee, there's clearly something very magical about this compost. Let us take a sample of it and go extract it. I'm sure some seedy government agency has done it, but of course it's not filtering down to you and I. But we know that what we found out, at least locally, and we have our environmental engineers, by the way, coming out this Sunday to do another test on all these clandestine areas that I have around here. And the main one that I'm telling people about, that within 6 months, we've basically taken all these so-called forever chemicals and have somehow, they're not there anymore, or they're not detectable anymore. So what has happened?
Yeah.
So as far as the active ingredient, as far as how it's happening, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. But if I were to point my suspicion at a couple of things, I would say it's the archaea that we have in there that we get from extreme locations on this planet. I would also say, as you mentioned a moment ago, one of the heavy lifters almost certainly is the fungi.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the kind of compost we're creating. So we're wanting to teach. This is why I've spent so much time on my YouTube channel and in my Patreon showing people how to make biocomplete compost. I mean, Dr. Elaine Ingham's standards for making biocomplete compost is 135 micrograms per gram of both bacteria and fungi. The stuff I'm producing is over 1,000. So it's on another level. We have levels of protozoa and beneficial nematodes and all these other things that are in here that we're able to extract, get it into an aqueous form, put it out there with just garden variety sprinklers, and we're finding out that we are cleaning this thing up. And this is why nobody would believe it. 6 months. This is why I haven't told the entire world about it yet, because yes, we've done scalar testing on it, which, by the way, we're finding out is more accurate than even the lab testing. But because I know they're going to come down on me like a ton of bricks, we got our engineers coming right back in to confirm what we know. Now, all of a sudden, Doc, we got trees out there that we just planted a month ago. Not the best time in the world to plant trees, in my view. I mean, it's usually going to be in fall or even in the winter. But we got trees out there that are absolutely robust. All the areas where they planted trees that we did not treat are dying, dead right in the middle of that field. But all the areas that we're treating, and we're thinking, okay, let's tell the whole world about this, but we're slowing our roll a little bit, making sure we got all our ducks in a row to prove that we are absolutely positively tying this up. And if it can work on an area like this, if people would just learn how to make really awesome compost, I mean, like Jeff Lawton said, all the world's problems are solved in the garden. And that's exactly what we're proving.
Yeah, that's amazing. And sorry, Mike, you're about to say something. Go for it.
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack here, Bear. And when I talked to Billy briefly after, this is what he was discussing on stage. And my ears perked when I heard transmutation on stage. I was like, what? And then I briefly spoke with him after about connecting with you and this gentleman, Walter Russell, and understanding that mainstream science has no clue what radiation is. They're lost within this quagmire of particle physics, which is theoretical. And they have distanced themselves from nature so far in this sort of mathematical mindset that this concept of transmutation is way too alien to them. But when we can start to get back to the true qualitative science of someone like Walter Russell, we can then get a better understanding of what is actually going on here. And Bear, you can take it from here, but obviously there is a life force at play here that is transmuting radiation through the magnetism of life, that is now allowing for that effect to be transmuted. Bear can explain a lot better than I.
Well, no, you did a good job, and it's a pretty lengthy discussion, but I had to do a lot of conventional studies, going through pre-med, med school, and all that kind of thing. And since then, I've had to relearn because in my career practicing medicine, I found out that outside of emergency medicine, which is the first thing I did, we really don't know how the body works or how to fix it. So I had to go back to school. That got me in touch with all sorts of things in alternative medical community, we'll say. But more importantly, I had to go relearn basic principles. And as Mike mentioned, Walter Russell was a key figure in my learning. Victor Schauberger, the same thing. And I'll talk about him just very briefly in a second. But we find out that transmutation is the way nature works. And if you don't understand that, again, what you said, we're all stuck in this reductionist mindset. And the transmutation happens, as Walter explains, in the higher octaves, where certain elements reach those tonal fields in the highest octaves, and then they are transmuted back and go full circle into other elements that are not fixed within the natural realm at all. One's becoming the other. It's a reality of constant flux and transformation based on the rule of transmutation. So the cool thing is, if you're a farmer or engineer or anything else, when you understand these principles, you can start changing things when you want into what you want right now and not have to wait for nature to do it in 10,000 years, because that's our prerogative. That's why we're here, is to be co-creators. So, you and I were talking about just what we have to contend with the byproducts of the chemtrailing and everything. We're in the process right now of doing similar things, what we know how to do to decontaminate, because we noticed some crops have really taken the hit over the last couple of years. Now, I'm delighted to hear that you guys are really documenting and validating certain ways where you can teach the world these things. We're kind of old school here. We just do a lot of trial and error and see what works, which means I can't really prove it to anybody. But I just want stuff to grow on my farm. I want to create beauty where I'm at, and not be stuck or feel victimized by what somebody else is doing to me. So that brings in the last thing I'll say, and we'll hand it over to you, is a gentleman by the name of Victor Schauberger, who understood the implosion side of nature, as Walter did also. And so we use, as I've talked about many times on podcasts, implosion technologies, vortex brewers and things, which actually were originated in your neck of the woods, I think South Carolina University. And but it works brilliantly because what we found in our experience is when you have an abundance of these microorganisms, and we create our own biodynamic brew, a very complex brew. And when we spray it, the microorganisms are so much more abundant than typical, brews that people make, with crude bubblers and everything. And it just gobbles up all the junk in the soil, and things just start thriving. Plus, not just gobbling up contaminants and breaking them down, but also, allowing plants just to be much more robust and aggressive in their growth. So, yeah, that's what we do. And, coming from a bioterrain medical perspective, I'm sort of big on using the little creatures that, live in the soil, and, like I did in bodies, and you just take those innate organisms and fungi and bacteria and the different forms that transmute, one form into another. And we use those, and they just let them do their work. And of course, that's a lot what you get when you're composting.
Man, it's hard for me to get my words out right now because I am absolutely elated to be able to speak to other people that talk the same language, which a lot of folks don't do and have no interest of doing. Um, and when we're done with this, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about vortexing because I have an idea that I'd love to bounce off to you, but I just don't know that it's ready for the open public right now. So
Mhm.
I'll hit you up with that on the end of it.
Okay.
Let me also say that, even as far back as a guy named Louis Crevant, who wrote the book Biological Transmutation, it was back in the 70s. They dogged this guy up one side, down the other. I got the book right downstairs in my library.
Yeah, I've shown that on our podcast as well. He's shows how even minerals in our body change from one thing to the next. Silica turns into calcium, and in our sorry to interrupt, but just real quick, in my practice, I didn't give somebody a mineral because I thought that mineral was going to be utilized directly by the body. I knew the body would take that mineral and transmute it into something that I really wanted them to have. And that was a great book that I've known about for a long time.
But it's so curious that the mainstream establishment, and now I'm to the point where if the mainstream poo-poos an idea, I'm going to look at it 10 times more. Because when I got into this and I'm realizing, okay, we are seeing changes that through all of my training, and as an autodidact, I mean, for me, I had to be self-taught on a lot of this stuff, had to read and find out for myself. So when I'm looking into Crevant's work, and if you take something as simple as an egg, and you can translate this story to anybody, I don't care what the age is. If you look at the calcium in the egg, and then you look at the chicken afterwards, okay, something happened there, and what else do you call it? But mainstream does not want to talk about this. But now all of a sudden, where we believe that things had to be tied up in medium and long chain carbonic acids, we're realizing that these so-called forever chemicals, and this is going to be the first time I publicly stated this, these so-called forever chemicals that are in the soil. Let me back up just a little bit. Let's talk about how the EPA and every other government institution would deal with a toxic mess. They'll go in there, dig that soil 10 feet down, put it on a truck, drive it out to the wilds of Arizona or New Mexico, dump it in the middle of a desert, and now it's somebody else's problem. Okay? Does
Yeah, what
that
could
make
go wrong
sense?
there?
That's how government does everything, by the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I'm about as anti-government anything as anybody you're ever going to find. And I'm trying to in fact, I'm making some pretty radical decisions and that are unfolding right now to escape this government even more. Um, but yeah, that's typically the way they go about it. Take that problem, and you're right, it's a microcosm for every other thing they're doing. Take that problem, drop it in another area, and then bring in soil, which you had to rob Peter to pay Paul. So why don't we just remediate it right on the spot, which we know we can do? So alongside this riverbank, I'm like, okay, this makes zero sense to sit here and put in a bunch of toxins. For example, what happened in the Gulf oil spill? What did they do? And it's to your point, Mike. They went out there, sprayed core exit. What did it do? Sink all that oil on the surface. If they'd have just left it alone, it would have been a better solution. They sprayed core exit on there, and now what did you do? Drop it to the bottom of the ocean, and Who even knows what's happening at this point? If they just would have left it alone, it probably would have been fine. Or maybe use some of the stuff we're using and it would have eaten it up.
And
Okay.
what kind of GMO organisms did they introduce into the ecosystem in order to drop it to the bottom of the ocean?
Exactly. And then let's not also forget about the fact that when they used it during the Exxon Valdez up in Alaska, nobody ever talks about the fact that everybody that worked on that Exxon Valdez oil spill with the core exit, they are dead.
Yeah.
Every single one of them that were in contact with that stuff. But they had all these fishermen down in the Gulf doing the very same thing. So, here
And
we are.
cancer rates have skyrocketed there too.
Absolutely. And it's going to get worse. It's probably going to get worse. And there's probably multifaceted effect that is going on in all these places. But the bottom line is that here it is. We have a real life example when the government, I'll give you a prime example of what went on around here. So the government was telling everybody in Western North Carolina, oh, the river is just fine. It's a little bit high on a couple of things. Right off the bat, we went out there, did our testing. Okay. Now the government, I mean, the mainstream hoople-headed citizen out here, they bought it hook, line, and sinker when they told them it was clear. When we came out, did a podcast, had 3 different testing modalities. We did one, Grindstone Ministries did one, and then Dr. Will did one, all confirming. None of them knew about any of the others. I was the only central point in all of it. All of their testing revealed that this place was toxic on another level. What do you think happened? Citizens out there didn't go after the government saying, hey, why did you lie to us? Why did you lie about us? No, they came after me saying, we want to see your testing. Everything is clear. And I'm like, okay, as soon as you show me the testing that they did, I'll show you mine. Don't you know somebody actually did it? Come to find out that this local NGO called Mountain True, along with the local paper, somebody got their actual documents, sent them out to us, proving that when they said it was all clear around here, showed that their testing was even worse than the stuff we produced. At the same time, they were telling the populace that everything was all clear. So now here we are on the back end of this thing. I'm probably in a few weeks going to tell everybody, you know what? We've crossed the finish line. All those toxic chemicals that were there 6 months ago, guess what? They're not here now. And they're probably going to come after me like nobody's business, kind of like they went after Cavon, Hopefully I wind up in better shape than he did because he was totally blacklisted. So along with some of the other people you mentioned there.
Well, that's a sign of honor, though, Billy. Blacklisted from what? From the conventional corporatized public place? Goodbye, anyways, right? Come over to where we are, buddy. Come into the private. Come to us.
Yeah, but people better wake up and smell the corruption or you're going to fall asleep drinking the hemlock. Or in this case, the toxicity.
Can I ask, I had a question. Do you think the toxicity was just an after effect of the spillover from all the water going through, stuff, or was it an end effect from the actual technology used to create the storm?
Fantastic question. And I'm going to say something that nobody ever wants me to talk about, but I've listened to enough of you guys to realize that I'm probably going to get away with it. So after doing a little bit of research with Dame Wigington, who's a friend of mine, basically came to the conclusion. These planes flew over. So it's a combination of a bunch of things. These planes flew over before the storm. They dropped these particles that were entwined with a system that already existed. They used the NEXRAD radar towers, which we do have documentation of, to steer this storm to cause it. When in living memory, have you ever seen a storm go over land, a hurricane, and get stronger as it hit the mountains, which should be breaking it up? No time in living memory do you know of anything like that. So they used these NEXRAD radar towers, which were intertwined with all of this dust, let's call it, that came from these planes. And it dropped the equivalent, we now know, of all the water that runs over Niagara Falls in 3 years. In 3 years, dropped in 30 minutes. So as you can imagine, it was absolutely devastating. And it's a wonder anybody lived through it. And of course, they're lying about the death counts. So that toxicity that was left behind, it was so crazy that Dr. Will came here because he didn't believe what his instruments were telling him from far off. He came here, and of course, I met with him. He said, dude, I thought everything was just going haywire. I wanted to come here, boots on the ground, to find out. And so it was a combination of what came through those factories. We also know that during World War I, all of the mustard gas that was produced was done in a place called Swannanoa. All of those areas were uncovered when those storms came through, this torrent of water came through there, uncovered. That's how the government, once again, Mike, you're right, they buried all of that mustard gas, what they used to make it, down deep. Well, all of it was uncovered likely during that storm. Upriver in Tennessee, all of the nuclear subs have their processing for their nuclear rods done in Tennessee. Guess what? It came downstream. All of it goes in the Smithville Lake. All of these rivers converge into that lake in Tennessee. I met Dr. Will over there, met with a bunch of firefighters in that area. These firemen were like, okay, dude, we're glad you're here. We love your podcast, but you can't film us and you can't record anything. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, dude, black SUVs are following us around. I'm like, in this little small town podunk place? Yeah. When we reached out to you guys, all of a sudden we're getting followed around by black SUVs. And I said, okay, I won't report it. He said, you can convey what we're saying, but we're not going to let you film or record us. I'm like, okay, so how did it go down? They said, okay, immediately when this storm went on, Air Force sniffer planes were flying around. Not long afterwards, black helicopters with guys in white suits got off, grabbed something, got back on the helicopters, flew out of there. All of a sudden, days later, they find overturned cars that are near the lake. They get in there in their chemical suits, in their firefighter outfits. These guys are burned from the chest down, crazy burns, chemical burns that they can't explain through their suits. Go to the hospital, get laughed out of there. They give them like, okay, you guys, it's all psychosomatic. Let's get you out of here. And these guys are absolutely upset. They reach out to Dr. Will, and of course, he's using the very healing protocols that you were talking about a moment ago, Doc, and getting these guys on the mend. They told me when I left there, drive past this sod farm. It's fluorescent green. I'm like, you're kidding me. Drove by there, and yes, indeed, it was the craziest color fluorescent green. I'm a farmer. I know what grass looks like, and it ain't that. Fluorescent green. Since that time, a month on, 18 people died within 5-mile radius of that firehouse. From that time until this present day, 150 are now dead. None of them were jabbed. So what explains that? All of these mysterious illnesses that nobody can seem to understand. Mainstream media isn't touching it. Nobody's touching it. All of these people, all that toxicity from the river, from the sky, from the nuclear plants, all of it. We even had videos that I've posted on social media of the barrels that came out somehow. I guess the mainstream is going to have me believe that somehow these barrels came from Oak Ridge lab all the way up to Asheville. I guess these things are like Beauty and the Beast. They come alive at midnight and then they just walked upstream, landed themselves somehow in Asheville, North Carolina, which is upstream. How would that happen? How do you explain this? So it's a combination of all these different things that are dropping this crazy toxicity in this place that I moved to. I thought this was going to be my forever home. Now I'm having to look for plan Bs. Of course, nobody around here wants to believe me, but we got all the evidence, all the tests, everything to prove it. So it's a combination from the sky, from everywhere around us. The government keeps lying about the level of the toxicity, and these people keep eating it up.
Yeah. You know, we're fortunate where we're at because we're truly in wilderness area and there's never been any prior agriculture or anything else going on upstream from us. And, you know, we are on the cleanest river in the country, so we're told. However, we're still getting it from the sky. We still notice the effects here on the ground and everything, but at least we don't have to contend with the things that you're talking about. I wanted to ask you, one thing we notice is there's everybody, all it's universal, has this constant high pitched ringing in their ears. And, you know, we're wondering, wow, are we getting targeted here? So we'll, you know, get in the car and go 14 hours south to see our grandkids or something. Same thing. Everywhere we go, people are all saying the same thing. So the number one question, I have my own ideas about this, but are you guys experiencing that? And if so, what do you think it is?
Yeah, I'm a targeted individual. I'm not even going to kid you. Moments before this podcast, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. And Mike, you may notice that a lot of the time when I met you, you'll notice I wasn't in that building. I was outside as much as I could possibly stand, being in the sunlight with my feet on the ground, because I am a targeted individual. What do I mean by that? Well, I live in the witch capital of the world. And based on some of the things I've said in my podcast and based on some of the things that I'm exposing, look, for about 500 bucks, you can go get a whole gang of witches to go put hexes on a dude. In addition to that, we come to find out, remember, I was a journeyman electrician also. Come to find out that we had dirty power coming, and I live in the middle of nowhere, y'all. I mean, this is being done by fiber optics, okay? So even with the Wi-Fi off, we had a level of toxicity coming around here, whether it was being backfed through our phones, whether it was being done through the Wi-Fi because we use it on occasion, or whether it's being done in the air right now because they're using the next rad radar towers to also do that as well.
Right.
It was so incredibly bad that my wife and I could not even be in our own house. The only time we would find, at least during the day, we were so targeted that we would be hit with this level of anxiety, ringing in the ears, the whole 9 yards, that the only thing that would help is to get totally naked, lay on the ground, and be completely grounded. And there were times where I would have to pray Psalm 91 over. And so we were being hit spiritually. And I don't care what anybody thinks about this. I'm going to tell you what my experience for real. People are going to laugh at me, but I don't care. We were being hit spiritually. We were being hit electronically, and we were being hit. And trust me, I know a lot more than people realized what they can do on that electric grid. So, and folks don't realize, you ever wonder why when the power goes out in your house, yeah, you're a little bit aggravated that it goes out, but you also have this giant sigh of relief? Yeah, it's because of the AC power grid, folks. So I had to work on getting technology in here. I'm not going to talk too much about it publicly, getting technology in here that would mitigate all of this crazy, dirty, I'll call it dirty electricity that's coming into this place. So I have ways to mitigate that and ways to test for it. That was number one. Number two, got basically a bunch of people out there that would pray for us in the spiritual realm and get rid of, come to find out, man, we were getting hit with everything in the kitchen doggone sink. So they were hitting us there. And then also having a better relationship with the technology that I do use. So there are moments where I'm being attacked, and I know that I am because I feel this level of anxiety that I can't explain. It's coming from a place because I eat impeccably. Okay. My environment is if I go out here with the RF meter, you're not going to pick up anything. So where's it coming from? So we had to work on being, and let's also be honest, I'm a very unusual cat in this space, okay? I'm a brown person that's neither left nor right. I'm about as freedom-minded as you're ever going to find. That is the worst thing possible for the powers that shouldn't be. So when they see somebody like me and they're realizing, oh, he doesn't buy the BS on the left, he doesn't buy it on the right, and he's out here telling everybody be an agorist, yeah, maybe I'm somebody they don't want to hear from.
Well,
Or maybe, I'm sorry, go ahead, Doc.
no, you go ahead, finish your thought.
No, the bottom line is at the end of the day, I'm the worst flipping nightmare for the powers that shouldn't be. So that's why they've gone out of their way to, I'm on a 2-week suspension from YouTube right now because a guest happened to mention, and I won't even bring up 3 doctors that are doing work in the same spaces, a lot of us would be familiar with. I won't bring them up now because I don't want to get you guys a strike.
Code words, please.
Yeah. So
we have regular strikes against us, especially when we start talking about medical atrocities and scams and things.
We're actually streaming on our not our other channel as well. So on our Off-Grid Elegance. That was kind of by mistake today, but it's good. So we're streaming on 2 YouTube channels right now because
and just the cliff notes of my history, because I had a long career in that, and we're helping people with things that are supposedly beyond help and having much success. So I had many of my colleagues die in the process, mysterious accidents. And then also targeted myself, in a number of ways. I won't go into it all. Um, bank accounts robbed and colleagues literally murdered in their sleep. And So I get it. We don't live in paranoia, but I know the world we live in. And the only other thing I was going to mention is that people that don't understand witchcraft or think that that's not real. Well, there's a reason why true spirituality, as was taught by the Nazarene originally, but it was all co-opted by book religions, to bring us into concepts of original sin and limitation and, and all that sort of thing. Um, if we understand our true abilities, not only would we be able to protect ourselves from others that would misuse that same energy that's inherent in all of us, but we've just the average person has become very vulnerable because they don't understand, and so that natural ability or potential in all of us has been inverted by a certain group of people that have weaponized it like they've weaponized everything else in nature. So yeah, what you're talking about is a very real thing. And all these frequencies, we're off grid. We turn the modem on where we get Starlink, so I can talk to you guys and everything. But then we turn it off. But, there's still that ringing in the ear. So I'm kind of thinking, maybe it's being beamed down on us. And I know for a fact those carrier waves that they use for Wi-Fi and everything can be modified at any time to induce behavioral upsets and physiological changes and things that maybe are producing epidemics at the same time or at least contributing to mass symptoms. But sorry, go ahead, finish
Well,
what you're
can I
saying.
add one thing too on the ringing ears thing, Bear, and witchcraft and the unseen worlds? You've talked a lot about what Steiner mentions about sort of the astral reality around hearing, and that
Yeah.
all hearing isn't just physical sound waves hitting an eardrum. There's a lot more going on there with with the sort of hypersensitivity of the senses going beyond the physical plane.
Yeah.
And so, who's to say that there aren't these black magicians that are sending these frequencies in the same way, like you talk about radiesthesia, Bear, and ability to send information across space and time, in a way that is beyond sort of the limitations of what we know from, particle physics. Well, maybe that's what's going on here is that there is those sort of dark arts happening. And,
Oh, absolutely. I
yeah.
know that for a fact.
And so what it takes is us to become a lot more empowered in our own spiritual gnosis, who we truly are, how we stand on the land, and how we decree to the world that we will not accept that, and that we will stand in our power and deny that reality in our experience. And I believe that can shut off the ringing like that when we truly understand how we have the power, as Bear was saying. So this
Yeah.
is a spiritual battle in many ways, and that's why I appreciate you, Billy, because you step out on a stage and you express yourself without worrying that you'll be judged by the quote unquote normies who laugh at this stuff.
Well, they're not laughing right now. I mean, and in fact, I'm not laughing at them either. I mean, we can see the consequences of your conduct and with what's unfolding right now. We got people dropping like flies because they chose to be a cog in the wheel instead of saying, you know what, I don't like that wheel. I'm going to be my own wheel. And yeah, there are consequences for choosing to live this way. I see incredible abundance all the way around me, but at the same time, I grow food that is better than anything you could ever hope to buy, right? But at the same time, I'm sitting here asking myself, well, is it really? Because my animals out in the pasture, my bees, all these things around me, the every bit of it's being polluted every single day. And it's the biggest aggravation and frustration of my life is that I can't get people to see they're comfortably sitting in the bottom of Plato's cave. And no matter how much we scream and yell and say, look, this is all an illusion. Come with me outside this cave. I'm going to show you there's blue skies. Well, maybe not right now, but there's green grass. I mean, metaphorically speaking, yank them out of Plato's cave, but no, they're content to watch those apparitions walking on a wall that don't even exist. And so that's why it is such an incredible joy to be able to come across guys like you and then a handful of others that can see this thing that have decided, you know what? I'm not digging it here at the bottom of this cave. I'm gonna claw my way out of it and I'm gonna see this thing for what it is. But at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, with the constant ringing, it's funny you guys bring it up because we observe it here, even in these mountains. It's always there, it's always present. The only time in recent time that it hasn't been is when the power was completely out after that manufactured hurricane. And boy, I could tell you a lot of crazy anomalies that unfolded with that. But honestly, because of all this, because of the conversation I'm having with you guys, I'm seriously taking massive steps to move to a place where this isn't happening. And of course, everybody says, well, it's happening everywhere. No, it isn't. There are places. Does anybody find it a little bit curious? Now, I'm sure you guys are aware of the, oh, shoot, what was that thing talked about 2025?
The Great Reset, or the Agenda 20, what, 20,
No, there was,
Agenda 2030.
no, there's the, it came out that said basically the population, we're going to have massive population decline.
Oh, it was kind of
Guidestones.
it was a released sort of intel
Right.
from the I don't know
Deagle
if it
report.
was the
Deagle
yeah
report.
Well,
yeah.
you have the guide stones and every, and go ahead, respond, but I can't come to any other conclusion than it's just a mass. There's a lot of greed in different hands and everything we're experiencing, different motives. But at the top of the chain, it's just a massive depopulation. There's no other conclusion you can come to.
Well, what if I told you I have yet for anybody to do the research? I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. But I will bet a dollar to donuts that if you were to look at all the countries that are supposed to have massive population declines in 2025 and overlay that with all the countries that are being heavily chemtrailed right now, you will see a correlation. I guarantee it. Because nearly every country south of Texas isn't being chemtrailed, but only in all the Western countries. Russia isn't getting chemtrailed. And then overlay that with all the countries that are supposed to have these massive population declines. And I bet a dollar to donuts, if you have some intrepid researcher out there that wants to do the research, look, it's all yours. Run with it. I guarantee you're going to find a correlation between those two. But yeah, I'm making plans right now, my wife and I, to see about alternative places, even though this to me, before this all started happening over the last several years, was paradise to me. Always wanted to live in the mountains, always wanted to farm in the mountains, always wanted to do everything I'm doing. And I'm thinking, okay, do I need to find mountains in Nicaragua? Do I need to find mountains because they're not getting sprayed? What, are we just special here? What, you're telling me it's coming from plane exhaust, which is absolutely laughable.
Yeah,
But
thanks, RFK, and of course we're safe because of Maha, and they're getting rid of red dye, but the stuff's from the fuel, it's like okay, I'm out of here.
yeah, I'm right there with you.
We moved
And
to Fiji in 1982 just because we were fed up with the way things were back then.
well, I'm wondering if we're going to have to do the same all over again, because if you talk to Dane and you look at some of the other work out here and you look at some of the testing that even Mike Adams has done regarding some of these chemtrails, nothing can live in this circumstance
No.
except what we're finding. How many people know how to do what I'm doing right now? These extremophiles, even with the heavy chemtrailing, seem to be eating up all the nasty stuff, even the nasties that were in the ground before the chemtrails started. We're like, okay, it looks like we got a solution to some of this stuff, but at the end of the day, I still got to breathe this air.
Yeah.
Even if we do have a decentralized solution for all of this, well, how do we bring that nationwide? And how do we do it yesterday? And how do we do it without them continually dropping more garbage just as soon as we clean it right up? It's a
Well,
mess.
you at the event were hanging out with Aaron, our boy, who understands the etheric arts around orgone energy and really embracing these other true qualitative sciences. And there are solutions there in terms of projecting our consciousness out through these antenna and interfacing with the ether to deflect the spraying and stuff. I truly have seen it myself. So there are technologies that can be implemented, but you're right. What's going to really require is our neighbors waking up, because there is a sovereign aspect to this, an element to this of allowing for this to happen, and allowing through ignorance and through, as you were saying, a deprecation of morality, right? Engaging. Every time I go to town to go surf or run an errand and I see the line to Taco Bell around the block, I lose heart a bit, And I'm like, God, people really, you're still doing this to yourself? The Taco Bell, folks out there who just are sort of the sheep, right? I hate to say that, but that's really what we're talking about. So, what I appreciate is that the lions, like ourselves, who are out, trying to take action, I do think there is a spirit. Maybe this is our spiritual path, though, is to stay here and to wake up our neighbors and through action help the tide change. So there is always that decision, right? Do we pack up and leave for what's good for our family, or do we stay and stand up for where we love? It's a tough decision.
Yeah, but
Real tough.
how do you at this point, it's I can't help but go back and think about Gibbon's fall and decline of the Roman Empire. Um, and some of his contemporaries, as the Visigoths were trying to get into Rome, let me just back up a little bit. And this is where I think it's a perfect overlay of where we are right now in the United States of amnesia, as Gore Vidal put it. Um, right before Rome was under attack by the Visigoths, all the aristocracy, they basically got all their stuff and they said, you know what? Hey, y'all, we're going over to Constantinople, all of us. Don't worry about us. We'll be back after a while. Well, what the plebs didn't realize is that they didn't pay the Visigoth hordes in the north, and they got out of there, went over to Constantinople. Well, some of the contemporaries of the people at that time, they wrote that the people in Rome had become so stupid, so sloven, that fish were literally jumping out of the river. But because once the aristocracy left, the slaves left. And the slaves were the ones that knew how to really do something. They didn't even know how to clean a fish anymore, but they were still having gladiatorial combat. It's also reported, and it may be in Gibbon's book, that it had gotten so bad they were starving to death, but still having gladiatorial combat in the arena. And people were yelling down from the arena when a gladiator was killed, how much for that meat? Meaning the gladiator dead in that Colosseum floor. These people have become so stupid, willfully so, and generationally, that they had forgotten how to do anything other than pleasure. They've forgotten everything but pleasure. Now,
And there's more eyes right now on the post NFL draft and what the next football season is going to be, than there is on subject matter that we're talking about. And
precise.
we're back there, right?
So how do
Big
we?
time.
So you overlay. There's a really good article at LouRockwell.com called Schumpeter's Rome, where you overlay all the things in ancient Rome right before the fall and all the things in the United States of amnesia currently, and it's striking. Whether it's having now we are by far, I mean, we have 900 military bases in 130 countries. We are an empire that Rome dreamed they could be. But you look at every single metric of an empire and what happens right before collapse. We're there. We are there. We've been there for a long time. We're on borrowed ground. And
And
so,
today we just passed a $1 trillion military budget.
thank you. So now, can you gentlemen, this is a rhetorical question, either one of you find me through the annals of history a single depraved population that ever corrected itself without the crucible of really hard times? It's a rhetorical question because you can't. You can't. So in every single case, when a when a society hits this level of depravity, it never fixes itself. It always hits rock bottom, and then you see something of a renaissance. And then, of course, we can see it with the fall of Rome, and then, of course, what some people call the Dark Ages. And then we get into the Renaissance. What does Renaissance mean? Rebirth. Okay, if you had a rebirth, that means you had a classical age once, and you did. So here we are right now, and I think we're right on that knife's edge. Could it happen any day? Absolutely. Bond market's looking pretty awful. So I'm thinking, okay, do I want to stay here? All the aristocracy have figuratively already packed on the first thing and did him out over to wherever they're going. They got their redoubts. So what about us? Do I want to go ahead and sit here and fight a losing battle with a population that couldn't care less? Or do I want to say, okay, see what's happening? The aristocracy have figuratively left. Do I want to get on the first thing smoking and go to my own little place of paradise and ride this thing out? I don't know. I'm asking those kinds of questions right now.
I'm right on the fence. You know, one side of me is where Mike's at is like, well, maybe we're here purposely to was with a job to do, and the other side of me is saying, wow, Fiji's sounding mighty good again. You know, and it's a tough one. I don't know. I don't know. If I didn't have grandkids, I would definitely leave.
Well,
Absolutely.
see, I got my grandkids. The way I'm looking at it is, you know what? Maybe if I live in a place that's more desirable in the place than they're currently living, maybe they want to get on the first thing smoking and follow me over there. I don't know. I mean, is that the solution? I don't know. But for the first time in my life, I'm asking these questions because I know enough about history. I mean, yeah, I learned all the nonsensical history we all learned in the history books, but then I learned real history when I started looking and examining it for myself. And nobody's going to tell me that we heal from this level of depravity. It does not happen. You can't find an example in history, not one. Um, so
No,
where do we
it's over the top right now.
Yeah. And it's not red state, it's not blue state, it's not left, right. It's not red state, it's not blue state, it's the state against you. And good luck getting somebody out there to really understand what I'm getting at with this.
Well, is there any kind of positive note we can leave this on, Mike? You were about to say something.
Well, I just think of that quote, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And that's the cycle. And there is a lot of cycle going on here, but I will say I see it sort of as a corkscrew up. So while it's cycling, we are evolving. I do believe in a progression of consciousness. And this is very philosophical, guys. This gets very philosophical and like what is important to you in your life, right? And I'll just say that in the past, we haven't had interconnectivity like we have right now, thanks to the internet, thanks to, this evolving consciousness through the material plane. And people were siloed in the past and allowed for when that collapse happened, it would be horrendous, of course. And maybe there is a way out. I was just at an event in Texas called Confluence, and it was 750 people that were really awake and looking towards solutions. And there was children that were blindfolded reading in front of 500 people. There was Dr. Hennessy Powell, who's going to be on Alfacast talk, from telepathy tapes, talking about how, there's these psychic children everywhere now. There was all sorts of talk about, enterprising new solutions around the getting out of the legal system and out of the state. So perhaps the limited scope we have of history is in fact limited, and they've protracted this in as like this is the all reality that we know, but maybe that's just a very slim slice of the human experience through the past, and that we have an opportunity for an entirely new epoch, whether that is nature bitch slapping us off the face plane and starting over through some sort of apocalyptic flood or fire situation. That could be possible, but in the end, I think what we all understand as farmers and people that work the land is that we see that every day, right, with the seasons, and that it comes back, and that we are all spiritual creatures, and this is all physical in the end. So
Yeah.
what we,
And
yeah, so do what's best for our own spiritual inclination, and that's where,
yeah, and Billy, I'd like to wrap this up. We've already gone over time. I apologize for that, but it's been an amazing conversation. I'd like to hear your final thoughts, where we leave this. My final comment is that there's a lot of great information getting out there. We're talking spirit and, returning to the land, but sometimes in the world of electronic communications, there's a lot of talk uh, and not really backed up with elbow grease. And when we're talking about, this subject matter today, yeah, you've put in the elbow grease. You've gone out there on the land, you've learned through trial and error and your own experience. And it's the same thing in the spiritual world. We can't just say, oh, we'll just change our consciousness. It's actually going to work. It's like a master in the martial arts. You don't just wake up one morning and learn, know how to move your body in ways that, defy what most people can do. You have to change from the inside out. So I think for those of us that are maybe inclined to go, more into tapping our potential, we can't just talk about it. We have to do a lot of work there. That means a commitment 24/7 eat, think, and, drink nothing but, who we really are, what, how to tap into that source and, not just talk like a bunch of new agers. So yeah, solutions are all there, but we got to get to work. So final thoughts, Billy.
Yeah, based on what I just said a moment ago, you might assume that I'm a pessimist. I'm really not.
Oh,
I
I don't
wouldn't
get that.
I wouldn't be engaged in what I'm doing right
Yeah.
now if I didn't know that there was a life raft in so many different ways. Whether I end up staying here, you know what? I'm prepared. I am prepared in ways that people can't even imagine, in so many different ways. So I'm not at all a pessimist in that regard, but I am a pessimist regarding human nature because I have books and books and books and example after example. The only area where I know that we can make the biggest difference in terms of is really what we're doing right now. I mean, it's this exchange of ideas in a forum like this where I am just absolutely blown away that I can even have this conversation. Can't even tell you how many times I've been interviewed, but nobody's ever asked questions like this. Nobody's ever asked, or have I been able to engage in things that we're talking about right now? So I know you guys exist out there. So if you exist out there, then there's other people that exist over here. And it's just a matter of us all finding each other. Now, sadly, I don't live closer to you and you don't live closer to me, but, we'll take whatever medium we can find. But I really, really, really believe at the end of the day, we've had it entirely too good for too long. So, folks, prepare yourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way possible for what's probably going to unfold because those who come on the other side of it, just like with the Roman Empire, not everybody succumbed, not everybody, but, a fair amount did. That's nature. Maybe this is the next extinction event. Well, I want to be on the living side of that thing. And I'm sure a lot of people out there do as well. So, folks, don't take what I said as pessimism. Take it as a warning, as a sign that maybe instead of worrying about the next NFL draft, maybe you might want to think about, you know what? Billy's the permaculture pimp daddy. Maybe he has a couple of videos on his channel that'll show me how to grow some fruit out there, or how he grows his chickens for free, or how I could do it, how I could teach other people to do it, or maybe how to get land that you don't own and how you can farm on it. All these things that I would not be doing this right now, spending so much time talking about these things if I didn't know that there were people out there that would take this stuff and put it to work. So that gives me hope.
And you give us hope, Billy. So thank you for what you're doing. And
Well,
thanks for
thank
being
you.
with us today. This is amazing. Now, can you maybe give us a few links and, however people can find you and what you're doing?
Sure. You can find us on YouTube at Perma Pastures Farm. We got an Instagram account and all that. I just started an X account a little while ago. I didn't realize how suppressed that platform was. But you can check us out at the Permaculture P.I.M.P.cast, P-I-M-P. It's an acronym. And you can go to our website if you need any comfrey, which we're probably the biggest sellers of it in the United States of Amnesia. Also, I make a product called Bone Sauce. It's the world's best deer repellent. I didn't invent it, but I did make it
Boy, I'd
much.
like to have a few gallons of that stuff.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to make, but I will send you some. If you give me your address, I'll send you
Oh,
some.
amazing.
Yeah, it's the world's best deer and rabbit repellent, and basically taken an Austrian recipe that's probably 1,000 years old, and I've made it kind of proprietary with the way I do it, and made it way more powerful. So if you got a deer or rabbit problem, I'm not saying it's a panacea, but if there's anything better, I don't know what it is. I mean, the only thing that would work better in these mountains is if you were to, I mean, put up pictures of Hillary Clinton or something around here, then maybe, not even Bigfoot would come around. So, yeah. So anyway, if you want to check us out, yeah, check us out at the website. But honestly, at the end of the day, folks, stay alert, stay alive. That's our motto.
Hillary's perfume, rotting meat, has done really well in her circles. Yeah, I really appreciate you, Billy. And if there's anything that you guys can take away from listening to this today is that you're not alone. There are so many people thinking like this and getting activated. And Billy, yeah, like I opened this up with, I see you as a new compadre, a new friend, and maybe we do need to create a federation of freedom farmers, because we're more powerful when we come together. And maybe that's something Joel Salatin might be interested in getting behind because he's got a lot of weight behind him and he believes in this. So, awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you so much. We'll let you get back to work, and thanks for getting your hands in the dirt every day. Love you, man. And yeah, all the links are in the show notes below. Please go support Michelle and Billy and all that they're doing. Go subscribe to their channel. And thanks again, buddy. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's a real joy. Can't wait to have you guys on the P.I.M.P.cast and put you guys in the hot seat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We really look forward to it. Remember, everybody, remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go show Mother Nature some love. She'll show it right back to you in spades. And we'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel, Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Until next time, love you. Peace.